It's time for Q&A in the Kitchen Podcast Edition. It's the podcast where tattoo artists and body piercers discuss topics at length and answer some of the most common questions about body piercing and tattooing. Brought to you in part by Skin Kitchen Tattoo, the Axiom Body Piercing Studio, and Death Before Decaf. In this episode, we cover what's disposable during the tattoo process and talk a little bit about safety and how things have changed over the years in the body piercing and tattooing industry. So, join the conversation with Jack Lowe, Wesley Dickerson, and DaVo as they discuss this topic at length.
Welcome back, guys. Today's question for Q&A in the kitchen is, what kind of equipment do we use that is disposable versus reusable these days, and kind of the evolution of and how it's progressed over the last couple of years? Jack, you want to go ahead and fire away?
Sure. Things have changed a ton since I've started. I started in 93 or something. And you made all your own needles, you soldered all your own needles onto the bar, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't mean a lot to you, but there was a lot of fuckery going on behind the scenes to get ready for your tattoo. And back in the day, it was acceptable and legal to reuse everything from the tube to the needle. No pigment could be reused, but you could reuse your needle and your tube if you were to autoclave sterilize them. Some people would reuse needles, some people wouldn't, but most people would because they were such a pain in the ass to make. They're very time intensive to make, and so you went through a very labor intensive process of making the needle, and then you'd go through a very labor intensive process of cleaning and making ready the needle, rebagging and sterilizing and all that stuff. That is long gone now. Thank God. It's made the job a lot more fun, a little more expensive on our end in a way, but at the same time it's become safer, easier, quicker, and it's just way better. Mm-hmm. So now the only thing there's nothing that touches your body that is not thrown away. Every single thing that comes in contact with you gets thrown away. So the needle, the carrier that the needle is in, our hands, our gloves, our anything, the pigment, the ointments, anything that we use while we're setting up is all disposable now. Everything is thrown away. It's single use. Everything that comes in contact with you is either sanitized or sterilized before we even get it. So it comes to us ready to go. There's no process on our end to get the product ready for you. It's great. It comes ready to go. We pop it out of the package, and we use a cartridge system now, which a lot of the artists are going to. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily some people like them better, some people don't.
You'll be hard pressed to find these being reused anymore, since they come in their own individual packages. Artists just chuck them away. They're a couple of bucks a piece. They're, in the long run of your tattoo, not worth us reusing.
Yeah,
so that's definitely, like you said, a thing of the past. That's all gone. Nothing's reused anymore.
Because one of the problems with being able to reuse needles is people would reuse them and reuse them and reuse them and reuse them to the point where they would hook the skin and just create these nasty...
Right. And usually the hooking occurs not from tattooing process, but from all the processes it takes to get that needle ready to tattoo, because you're handling it a lot. You're putting it in a bag, you're brushing it, you're putting it in here and then putting it in there, and every time that needle gets jostled or moved or touches something, there is a chance that tiny little tip can get moved a little bit. And unless you eye loop every single needle, which you should before you use it, you can get those fish hooks. And even if you eye loop it, you can still get a fish hook if you don't look close, because the hook could be hooking this way. You could look real quick at your nail. Yep, looks good. And then next thing you know, you got a hook. So that's thing of the past now with these cool cartridges.
What I found interesting is the evolution of the grips. Is that when I started, And in fact, probably when you started still too, is we all used those steel grips that had to be autoclaved.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a short bit here, you started seeing a lot of artists move into disposable grips.
Mm-hmm.
That was popular for a couple of years, and now our machines nowadays have, and yours and mine and a bunch of others have these grips that are Integrated. Yep, they're part of it, that are reusable but maticidable or autoclavable depending on what types you buy. And so that it's kind of interesting to see that they went from reusable to disposable back to reusable, but in a much cleaner, much better, and more economically efficient for us, financially efficient.
Yeah. I would say that. Another great thing about the cartridge system, they call them carts or cartridges, is that before you'd have to set up at minimum two machines to do the tattoo. You need a liner machine and a shader machine. You could use one machine, but that means you're going to have to disassemble the liner machine after you're done with your lines, reassemble it as a shader, which takes a couple minutes, set it up, and then go. And then if you want to, I need to touch up a couple lines now, I see that after I've shaded, you'll have to do that again. So you'd set up at least 2 machines. Towards the end, before I switched over to coil, or to the rotaries, I was setting up commonly 3, if not 4 machines.
You want some bold lines too. If you want to, go in with your thin lines, and you want some of them to be thick lines.
Right.
That's a whole other machine because you need something a little bit more stronger.
Yeah. Now all you do is you have your machine here. You literally half turn this cartridge. You take it out. You put in another cartridge. You half turn it, and now you've just swapped your liner to your shader. And if you want to go back to your liner real quick, easy, twist, pop, boom, you're done. So it speeds up our process, which speeds up your time in the chair, which is great. Who wants to sit in the chair any longer than they have to? And for us, it saves us a lot of time having to build each one of these individually. Sometimes I'll go through 15 or 20 of these in a day. So it takes hours to build, process, label, and store that many needles. So with this, we buy them, they come, we pop it out right in front of you, pop it in the machine, we use it, and after it's done, we pop them in the sharps container. We've been open a year and say 6 months-ish now at this new location, and I think I've filled 2 sharps, and I'm on my 3rd with these. So we go through a lot of them, but it's great. It saves us time, and it's way safer, it's nicer, and just makes tattooing more fun. It really does. There's not as much fiddling on the back end. We can concentrate more on what we're going to do, and how we're going to do it, rather than, I got to make a 9 mag and a 15 mag and a 3. I'll probably need a 5. Okay. And then it takes so much of that out that we can spend all that energy in your tattoo.
And
go ahead.
And the way these innovations between these 2 products have grown in the last couple of years has made it so much easier on you as a client for your skin healing up, how quickly it heals up with less scabbing, less pain throughout the whole tattoo in general. So they
get the work done a lot faster and more efficiently, where before the coil machines, and if they weren't set up properly, and it's harder to get them set up properly, you're kind of bashing the skin into submission to get to that layer you want your skin your pigment to be, so you can get it to heal right. Where these are much powerful, they get in and they get out to that layer without all that bashing and crashing, and creates way less pain, way less trauma, faster healing, way more saturated pigments, and just an overall happier experience for everybody. So you really can't beat them.
Plus, the other thing is that because you have that time freed up, it has expanded the increase amount of completely custom tattoos.
Absolutely.
Because now you guys have time to draw.
Absolutely.
The old shops, it was kind of like, I got to do needles, and then after I'm done that, this guy's coming in. Which design did you want? We'll slap that on, get that going. And it changed that. The other thing is that you were talking about the disposable tubes. Is that the biggest change? Like when I first started getting tattooed back in the late 80s, early 90s, is the use of plastic over the entire rig, from the tube,
bagging the machine,
all the way over, to limit the amount of exposure that has to bodily fluids, ants, and etc. It's a lot cleaner process than it was originally.
Cleaning equipment back in the day, I remember scrubbing tubes. That was an hours-long process that you spent a good portion of your apprenticeship doing. getting the inks out of little things.
That's why we had apprentices.
Yep,
was
and
happy.
these ink cartridges and the way they're designed with either membranes or, I mean, we do a lot to protect the machine itself by wrapping it up to begin with, but how little biohazard material gets on your actual equipment anymore is astounding from what it used to be back in the day.
Yeah. Everything, all these little, all these little cracks and crevices, and that have slowly over time since I've started have been sealed up. When I first started, spray bottles and things like that weren't even bagged. It just nobody did it. It just didn't occur in the industry that you would bag it.
Yep.
For some reason, I don't know. And then when it starts happening, you're like, well, duh, why weren't we doing that from the get-go? And I think once that started, people start going, wait a minute, we need to fucking look and see, where are these little crevices and cracks in our game that we need to tighten up. And at this stage of the game, I mean, it's
I remember one artist, he would adjust his work lamp all the time.
Right.
Never bagged up, but just move that around however he wanted it.
Yeah.
Every 3 times a tattoo,
Right.
3 tattoos a day. And later on in life, that's the thing that you see artists saran wrap the whole thing.
Yeah, the blue clean stuff, all that stuff. Yeah, it's almost as important. People almost have a style to that as they do their tattooing, the way they like to wrap things and the way they like to do their barrier film. It's almost kind of it's almost artistic too. We almost kind of take a pride in that.
I like working with new artists because there's always new techniques.
And trading,
and just the setup.
Yeah, and different way people are super over the top anal about certain things. I've worked with a bunch of different people all around, and the way certain people are just like they're going into a goddamn surgery.
There's a handful of things I do that are over the top on purpose. I like specifically green tape with my black dental biz because I think the look is cool.
Yeah, it looks cool.
That's the only reason why. Saran wrap works just as well, but I like my look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the important thing is things are getting, things are barriered, and it's tattooing's easier for us, safer for the client now than it has ever been, than I can imagine. So,
and the history of tattooing, this modern tattooing, you went through the hepatitis scares of the 1950s, which happened mainly in New York and other places. And in that period of time, they basically poured the inks out on just whatever they were working off of, like this table. They had one bucket that had a little bit of Lysol in it that they used to wipe off the person with the same rag all night long.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know better.
Right.
And progressively that took off from, thanks, the advantage of the hepatitis scare was that it taught people like, oh, really? I shouldn't do that? And even when you started getting tattooed, people would smoke at their station. Their clients would smoke at their station. They'd eat sandwiches while they were tattooing you.
Yeah.
Pizza. Oh, food's here because they're working all day long. They're sitting there in one glove. I remember tattoo artists being so cheap they would take the glove off and set it on the table, go do whatever they were going to do, and then come back and put that exact same glove on. It's like, how much? And back then, now it's like maybe 20 cents a pair. Right around in there.
Like that.
Back then, it was probably nickels.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, I heard of when the big glove thing was coming in at conventions and stuff, they were starting to push that. There were certain artists, old school guys, that would wear only a glove on their tattooing hand.
Yeah.
Because that's the way it was written. So they were like, all right, and
Minimum
they wear
requirements.
one glove, like, okay. It was just such a foreign thing that there was kind of this resistance to it. And then it got to the point like, look, dude, it's not acceptable anymore at all. I don't care how old school you are, or how whatever, and how you haven't died yet, but no, it's just not acceptable
Step
anymore.
up or step out.
I've walked into
Change ways.
tattoo shops where I'm like, I'm not getting tattooed here.
Oh yeah,
because there's dogs running around and they're petting them while they're tattooing.
Right.
It's just like,
and
this, it's just a lot of it's common sense. Piercing, entirely different thing because it's not as big of an industry. So the things that have come into play, like disposable clamps and tubes and etc., the quality isn't there yet to where it's usable or practical from a cost point.
Right.
Like I've always said, I could set up a surgery room. What do they call them? They're not a room. They're a opera or is it opera or
operating?
no? For an operating, they have it's like a stage name. completely clean, completely sterile, but I'd have to charge $300 to do an ear piercing.
Right.
I mean, it's the way it is. So it's trying to find that middle ground between the two.
Yep.
I mean, with us, forceps are reusable, but they have to be cleaned every time and decontaminated. If you're interested on how that happens, I did post a video on here exactly explaining what I do every time I use that. But anything that actually punctures the skin is always disposed of as medical waste.
Yep.
Those needles, and this thing with people that'll, I bent the bar on the needle, and I did this and I did that before. Nobody's going to dig around in a biohazard container. If they've thrown it in a biohazard container, unless they're a complete idiot or really, really, really cheap, which they won't last very long, no one's going to dig around in that container to find that proper needle.
They're going to risk their own safety and health by doing that first.
And that's the other thing with this, is one of the reasons we're safe and cautious as we are is you're in contact with a tattoo maybe full session, 8 hours maybe.
8 hours
Most
every day.
people on average 2 to 3 hours every single day, 5 days a week, from usually about noon until 8-ish. I'm in contact with this stuff all day long. I'm the one and my fellow employees that are most likely to catch something off something that isn't cleaned properly or labeled properly or disposed of properly. So it has more to do with pride of ownership and all that fun stuff, but at the same time, their own personal damn safety.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm sick, I can't do this.
Yep.
That sucks.
Yep. And it would suck to have hepatitis and try to stay in this industry.
Oh, boy. Indeed.
Yes.
Well,
I think that sums that up.
You think
for
they
the most
got
part.
that? Did you get that?
Yep.
You got it?
And if you'd like to learn more about tattooing, or at least the piercing side of it, of sterilization, decontamination, all that, there's 3 extremely long videos where I go through the process. You can check that out on our channel. First of all, we'd like to thank Death Before Decaffe for Decaffe. I said Decaffe, didn't I?
Yeah. See, I told you, you gotta follow. You gotta hit the subscribe button just as
just to catch those flukes. Anyway, we'd like to thank Death Before Decaf for helping us out by supplying the coffee.
Yes.
If you like flavored coffees and you like copies, I just can't talk today.
DaVo's making copies.
It's gotta be the copy. It might copy. It's the copy.
If you'd like the flavored coffee,
DaVo just can't let Kinkos go.
click their Facebook page, follow them,
There are listed in the description.
buy some of their coffee, check them out.
And
They
they
do
got
some really good flavors.
Cool merch too.
You've been listening to the podcast edition of Q&A in the Kitchen. If you would like to see the video version of this, go over to our YouTube channel, Body Piercing and Tattooing channel. Yep, that's the name. And subscribe. Also, make sure to subscribe to this podcast if you prefer to listen to these in the future. Once again, this is brought to you in part by Skin Kitchen Tattoo and Axiom Body Piercing Studio, located in Des Moines, Iowa, and Death Before Decaf. Other than that, you all have a good day. Hope things are well and good in your world. And we hope that your tattoos and piercings heal with ease and without issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, we all hope to see you for your tattooing and body piercing needs in the future.